Hello, tonight our lesson is on the Pythagorean theorem. When we made our triangles using the different sized squares, we discovered that whenever you have two squares whose area, when you add them together, equals the area of the longest side of the triangle, that you get a right triangle. Alright, so here we have that picture of what we did. When we add the area of a squared and then b squared, that would equal the area of h squared. Now, the longest side of this triangle is known as the hypotenuse. Alright, so here is how we generally write the Pythagorean theorem. We take a and b, which represent the two smaller squares, or the lengths of those two smaller squares. We call those the legs of the right triangle. Then the length of the longest side, one side of that biggest square, is called hypotenuse, and we use the letter C to represent hypotenuse. So here is our Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so here we have a right triangle, and we know it's a right triangle because of the right angle in the corner. The two legs of the triangle are 3 and 4. All right, so if we square the 3 and we square the 4 and add those together, that would equal the square of the hypotenuse, or the longest side. And so we can see on this picture over here, going back to the square analogy, that when we square the 3, now even though these legs are in different spots, it doesn't matter. It's still a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. When we square 3, the area is 9. When we square 4, the area is 16. If we add those together, we get 25. All right, so 25 is going to equal the area of the biggest square. So to find the distance, this distance here, C, we would take the square root, because that would give us the length of one side of the square. So the square root of 25, of course, is equal to 5, because 5 squared is 25. All right, here we have another right triangle. So let's solve for the missing side. Now, even though the x is being used in our formula, the Pythagorean theorem, the c is still going to be the longest side in our formula. So even though there's an x there, it really doesn't matter. We're still solving for hypotenuse. A and b are going to equal the two legs, and it really doesn't matter which leg is A and which leg is B. All right, so I'll plug in 6 and 8 for A and B. We're going to square those. So the area of 6 squared is 36, and 8 squared is 64. And we'll add those together, and that equals 100. All right, so if we take the length of the hypotenuse, if we made a square out of it, it would equal 100. So what would the length of each side be? Well, that's right. If you said 10, you're correct. So taking the square root of 100 would give us the length of one side of that square, which is equal to the hypotenuse. So the longest side of the right triangle equals 10. All right, here's our last example for tonight. Go ahead and pause your video and then use the Pythagorean theorem to find the length of x, right here, and restart to check your answer. Welcome back from pausing the video. Let's start with the theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And again, even though there's an x there, that represents c. The two legs are 15 and 8. So we'll plug those in for a and b. And now we're solving for c. 15 squared, well, 15 times 15, that's 225. 8 squared is 64. Add those together, we get 289. All right, so if the area of that biggest square is 289, we'll take a square root, and that will give us the length of the hypotenuse right there. So the square root of 289 is equal to c, and that just happens to be a perfect square. 17 times 17 is 289, so c equals 17. So how'd you do? Okay, that's all for tonight. Thanks for listening, and remember, read some books.